Okay, this is my first YouTube live, so I'm gonna probably not do too long. I want to make sure it all works. I usually do a Twitch stream, but my Twitch thing was not working and it said it was having an issue going live, so I thought I would switch it up a little bit and we would do YouTube, so we'll see how this works. We'll see. I think I'm gonna probably start streaming on YouTube maybe once a week and then do Twitch once a week instead of Twitch like twice a week. Twitch is changing up some of their stuff a little bit, so I might kind of change up some of my stuff a little bit on what I do. Okay, so I don't really have a huge topic today. I usually don't respond to the chat till I'm a little bit farther into the streams, usually about 15-20 minutes just to kind of throw out some stuff. And then I'll kind of pop in and look at it. It can kind of throw me off if I'm trying to talk about one topic and a lot of different ones come in. It's different frequencies, different topics we talk about hit different frequencies. So if I go to one, then sometimes I can't. I guess I can, but it's just a little more difficult when you're dealing in this type of stream of consciousness flows. When we start talking about consciousness and expanding your consciousness, you can kind of get in and out quite a bit. So, but I do answer questions and take questions. So anyone wants to pop a question in, we can pop a question in the chat and we'll go from there. So I think I'm just going to do an overview today a little bit about more of what I'm going to come on and talk about. I'll probably schedule streams at, like I said, so many times a week. I don't know. I don't know what days yet. I'm in the middle of closing out some reality. So I kind of got to see how all that settles out before I really commit to dates and times and stuff. But I do want to kind of talk about you see a lot of people talk about third dimensional realities, fourth dimensional realities, higher realities. And it's kind of an interesting parallel in a sense when you start looking at how people kind of describe things, how we look at things, how your consciousness is gonna understand things and what we're using to try to understand things. Like what consciousness are we in when we are doing certain things? And that's one thing we're gonna try to bring more to the forefront. And a lot of the videos I do, I kind of try to bring that to the forefront on what exactly are we doing, who's talking here in a sense, who's kind of in control, because we use the term the matrix. A lot of people talk about the term the matrix. It's a great movie for exiting the illusion, so it was a great activator. A lot of things we see every day are great activators for how we kind of get out of stuff, how we get out of different situations, realities we built, and how we kind of get out of them. Now the movie kind of picks it as, he just kind of pulls up and he's all of a sudden he's out. And in reality, it doesn't work that quickly, because you're too programmed and anchored in. It's not just like in the movie, The Matrix, it was just a consciousness that was anchored in, but in our illusion, our body is anchored in. So it's a little different to exit human realities, which are just really human consciousness believed realities. That's really all that means. A lot of people throw around different words, but all that means is it's just your human consciousness builds an illusion and you believe that illusion. And the more you believe that illusion, the more you kind of feed into that consciousness. And that's what that is. It's a human consciousness. It's an illusion. It's not real. But a lot of times we don't see that yet. We don't understand that it's not real. We think it's all real. Now, technically, even your higher dimensional realities are not real. It's just a prettier illusion, but they're not really real either, because all it is showing you what we hold inside, what we believe. And third dimensional realities are built on they're kind of built on intimidation, they're built on threats, they're kind of built on all these things. And sometimes we kind of get fed up with the whole thing and we kind of just want to just kind of walk out of a lot of these realities. But it's not that easy. It's that easy. I'm going to walk that back a little bit. It's that easy if we don't have if our body wasn't so anchored there, because that's kind of what keeps us in the realities. We have so much to break through with our bodies to kind of exit out of these realities. So it isn't that quick, all of a sudden I'm out. And if anyone tells you that, it's just because they haven't got to the part of the process yet where they have to deal with the extraction of getting out of human realities, getting out of all the things that, we've kind of intertwined, getting out of all the stuff that is just sort of all all everywhere, in a sense, where we can actually kind of leave and go forward into something else, because we're kind of our body is anchored there. So when we talk about higher consciousness kind of lifting us out of those realities, we have to hold the higher consciousness long enough for our body to move out of the realities, to move out of that level of consciousness. So think about it as like a hot air balloon. That's usually the analogy I'll do, is your consciousness is the balloon, and it's pulling you up. But it takes a long time holding the higher consciousness to actually start to pull you up, to get you out of that reality and into a different one. And then it takes a while for that to reform, because our body has to go through such a massive process of clearing all the stuff related to the old energies, all the stuff related to the old frequencies. It just takes so much time. And I don't really like time, because technically time doesn't exist, but it takes a lot of time for us to clear the stuff from our body. So there is a linear time frame, and for a lot of us it's very similar. We have 7-year time frames, we'll have 2-year time frames, we'll have 2 to 4 year time frames. You'll be able to look back in different parts of your human existence and see how it was still going through a certain pattern of time frames. It wasn't as random as our human consciousness wants to make us believe. It wasn't as random. It definitely had more of a beat to it. It had more of a I don't even know the word I want to use here. It has more of a symphony to it, in a sense. Even when we're in our human consciousness and our human realities, there's still a greater force. And that's just really just us, higher aspects of us, sort of creating everything. I always look at the human consciousness, it's kind of like, it's just kind of like this teeny tiny little consciousness that we think knows all the answers, because everything around us is telling us that has all the answers, that is everything. Right? And that everything we do, we have to act from that consciousness, or we get thrown out of human realities, and we're not really able to participate in them anymore. And whether that's because all of a sudden you don't have the A, B, C, or D that we want for you to be in this reality, whether it be the education, the money, the look, whatever it is, you don't have that stuff anymore. Those stuff all get stripped away, so you really can't go back in, even if you want to go back in. And for a while, we kind of want to go back in. And it's okay if you're in that place where you want to go back in and you don't want to stay out. And that was one of the things in the movie The Matrix. Some people just were like, this sucks. This is sucky. I don't want to stay out here. I'll go back in there. It was an illusion, but at least I didn't know any better. Now, the issue we have is we know better. And you can't erase the knowing better, where in the movie they had a way to erase the way of knowing better, and they could go back in and they wouldn't remember. But here it's kind of you can't go back on a ship that sank. And we do a lot of videos where we talk about, is the ship sinking? It's taking on water. Am I supposed to bail it out? Am I supposed to just jump off? But what am I supposed to do? How long can I keep this afloat? And if it wasn't sinking so fast, would I jump onto the dinghy that's coming by? Normally, I might not do that, but because my situation is so dire here, I'm gonna use words to explain here, because nothing's really ever dire. But since it's all shitty right here, I'm gonna jump. We're gonna jump to that dinghy, because at least that dinghy is gonna get me somewhere else, and this ship is sinking. Once we get off of the human realities, even take ourselves out of them bit by bit, because it's in a longer extraction process, because we're so, in our human consciousness, we're very affected by everything outside of us. When we get into our higher consciousness, we're not as affected by everything outside of it. It's more of an internal, you let the internal, you have to keep that connection internal no matter what's happening outside of you. And you're going to get a lot of tests with that. I know lately I've had a lot of tests with that, and something I think I do pretty good at, and some I don't do very good at, because I just get kind of fed up with the whole human consciousness and the whole human realities. And you just get to this point where you're like, I just kind of wash my hands of it, in a sense. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm too tired to keep going. I'm kind of too tired to even fight it, in a sense, and try to hold on to the new, or let go of the old. I just don't have any more energy left. And there's a lot of times we get to that point, and we get to that point for a lot of different reasons. Our body has to completely surrender and just say, okay, I'm done now. I can't do this anymore, because there's a lot of resistance in our body. And if you don't think you have resistance in your body, ask for a certain reality to occur or a certain reality to fall away, and then listen, feel your body and feel what tightens up in your body. You'll be shocked how much body resistance you have when you're dealing with leaving things behind, letting things go. Even if our boat is sinking in our human reality, we still don't want to let it go. We will stay till we're clinging to plywood. It'll be worse than the scenes in the Titanic, because we don't want to let it go. We don't want to believe there's something else. And sometimes you have to you're going to be asked, the more you transition over to higher consciousness realities, you're going to be asked to do things and trust in things that you cannot see, no matter how the outside world is telling you that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. You have to be able to see beyond all that. You have to be able to really have that connection inside. That's why it's so important to establish that early on, and you continue to establish that as you go. You continue to deepen that connection, because if you don't deepen that connection, you have nothing to kind of go back to when the road gets a little rougher. And the road will get a little rougher. A lot of people talk about how foo-foo it is, and it's beautiful and it's magical when they first start getting into higher consciousness realities. The colors are brighter and they're just kind of floating around, and they have this singy songiness to their voice. And I remember when I was in that place, I had that singy songiness to my voice too. And now I can't really stand to listen to it. Anyone in that place, I can't listen to them, because I am in such a different place right now that it aggravates me. It just kind of hits a chord with me. But it's not anything personal against them or when I was in that place. Some people watch those videos, whether they're mine or someone else's, because they're in that place and they want to actually sort of understand that place more, or be with other people in that place. But when you start exiting out of that place, you have to start putting your realities in order. You can't link back up to human consciousness realities. You can't link back up to those realities. You have to figure out new and inventive ways to link up to higher consciousness realities, even if it feels like those feel kind of I don't want to use the word unbearable, but they kind of feel like sometimes they feel like there's such a mountain to climb that you can't really go one way or the other. So we kind of find new and inventive ways to do that. And when we do that, that's kind of when it gets rougher for our human, because we have to let a lot of stuff go. We have to really believe in something else, believe in a different reality. And it sounds easy to say that, but what I have found is anytime I'm trying to transition out of one into another, it just gets squeezed more, because, and there's a part of me that gets tired of that. And there's a part of me that understands the squeeze, because it also has to draw out any of the old frequency still left. So if you have any of the old frequencies still left, then you're going to start to feel that squeeze, right? You're going to start to feel the squeeze, because it has to all be gone before you can get into the next reality. You can't get into the next frequency. And we talk about getting into the next reality. We're talking about getting into the next frequency. We can't get into the next frequency. We can't get into the next reality until we are 100% able to disconnect and disattach from everything connected to the old frequency. And sometimes that means a lot of fear is going to come up. A lot of situations are going to come up to kind of push that fear, because we have to not be afraid of it. And if we are, and we kind of call uncle, which I'll be honest, there's a couple times I will call uncle, and I have definitely called it lately, like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm just too tired. But you do get to that. And so if you're in that place, that's fine, because we get to that place a lot. And just when you think you can't go one more step, then you find somewhere where you can. And when you just have to keep going deeper inside to kind of find the next thing, to kind of find the depth which you didn't know you had, right? Because I know the longer I go through this, and you go through anchoring in higher consciousness, how long it takes, how you think a reality is going to be one thing. And because the only thing we have, especially in the earlier parts, and even in the earlier parts, sometimes the first 2 or 3, 4 years of the journey, you're still working through a lot of human programming. You're still working through a lot of human fear. You're still releasing a ton of fear in the body. It's so much fear in the body that we have to release, that we just continue to go through that and continue to go through that, because that's kind of what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to clear that stuff out. You're going to trigger situations to clear the fear. If you don't fear the situation, then it's not going to occur. That's how we trigger realities. If we're really afraid of something occurring, we're going to trigger that reality first because we have a great fear of that reality. And the minute we have a fear of that reality, then that's when it's going to be one of the first things that happens for us. It's going to be one of the first things that occurs. We're going to be afraid of it. We're not going to want that to happen. We're not going to want to be part of that anymore, But if we don't have a fear of it anymore, it won't occur. So a lot of times we'll find ourselves keep going through a lot of looping patterns of the same thing, the same thing, the same thing. We're like, why is this always the same thing? And sometimes you even might get a reprieve. I had a couple years where I had a reprieve from some stuff. And then it kept coming harder and harder and harder and harder because I still had a fear there. And I needed to work through all of it and not just parts of it. Even though we're working through parts of it at a time and we feel like we're repeating, it's like, how come I keep repeating the same thing? Why do I keep going through the same thing? We're not so much going through the same thing. We just are going deeper in to get more of it out. There's still more fear there. You're still letting that control you. You're still letting that control how you feel about yourself. You're letting that control about how you feel about everything. And we can't allow that. And that's what you're going to be continually faced with doing for a while. And that's when it can feel very exhausting. And it can feel like it's just an uphill battle in a sense with a lot of different things because we feel like we're always back in that same thing. We can't seem to break free of that. We're always going to be back in that same situation, but there's a reason we end up back there because we have more to clear there, especially if you have sort of a safety trap door. I had a friend that used to call it kind of a trap door. When it would get really tough, she'd just pull the trap door and she'd get out. And a lot of us kind of have those. We have those trap doors built in. We have the person we'll go to help us with this, the person we'll go to help us with that. What we'll do when it gets tough, we'll have our human tendencies. We'll start to have our pattern. And for a while, it's okay to go to some of these places because that's aligned. After a while, it's not really aligned anymore and you can't continue to kind of go back to those wells. Then they do really become like kind of a way out of a reality. But the reality is not energetically finished. And we talk a lot on this channel about being physically done with something or energetically done. You can't leave anything behind unless you're energetically finished with it. You can feel like you have a physical completion with it, whether that means you lost the job or you quit the job or you got divorced or whatever it is, which our human wants that physical thing. It wants that physical date. Like, okay, well, that's done now. That physical thing is finished and I can now go forward. That physical thing was not the thing that kept the reality in place. That is just the marker we wanted to see, right? Our human wanted that marker. That's why a lot of times things will usually collapse energetically before we even hit those markers, because that wasn't the completion. That was just our human's completion, because our human wants to see something physical. That's kind of the whole part about the human reality, is that we want to see physical proof on anything. And if we don't see physical proof on stuff, then we don't feel like we got what we wanted, and there's a lot in this journey about trying to do it perfect, and I know you want it all to kind of work out this way, and you want to be able to do this, and you want to be able to do this, you want to close everything out in the highest possible place. And we don't want to have to repeat it again, so we want to have to button it up, but sometimes you don't feel like you have the energy, whether that's the money or the time, to do that, and that can be frustrating. But then we just have to understand that if it was aligned for you to do it that way, you would have the capability to do it that way. And if you don't, there's a reason for that too, because you're breaking through other programming where you're not supposed to do it that way. You're not supposed to continue to give in a situation perhaps where no one else is really doing anything. They just want you to continue to do it. So there's a lot of that goes on in a lot of these realities where we have to continue. We continue to and it's a kind of another way we overstep our energetic bounds. And a lot of times I'll mention this because it's kind of like that Dirty Dancing monologue. Patrick Swayze said, if you don't come into my space, I don't come into yours. Now, just imagine your space, your energetic space. You don't go into somebody else's and they don't come to yours. Anytime you're telling someone you should do something, or someone tells you you should do something, then you're energetically overstepping your bounds. And some of those are very clear cut to see. when we're overstepping. And sometimes it's not as quite, it's more subtle than that when we overstep. It's more, maybe we're trying to do too much. We're trying to save someone from themselves in a sense. We're trying to overstep because we have a judgment about what someone's going to think if we don't overcompensate. If we don't do all these things, then someone else is going to come back and go, oh yeah, you're not doing all this anymore. And you want us to have to do something. We don't want to do anything. So we get into a lot of those balancing out the imbalances of relationships, balancing out the imbalances of realities. And we go into a lot of that. I'm going to open up my chat for a second to see if I have anything. Okay, good. I don't have anything, and I'm kind of glad on that, actually. I want to kind of get this first one out to make sure everything flowed correctly before I actually do a lot of Q&A. Okay, so where was that? We were talking about being able to really exit a reality. And how do we start being able to align them? And they don't look like they did before. And they're not going to seem to flow as easily, as they flowed before. They're going to feel choppy, or they're going to feel different. They're not going to feel the same. They're not going to look the same. And that's okay. It's our judgment of them being that way that can be the hurdle we have to overcome, because we want them to be a certain way. We don't like it when it's not this way. We want it to come this way. We don't want it to be that way. We want it to be this way. We continually try to shift things and continually try to change things because we don't like the way they are, or we don't like the judgment of them from others. But technically that's our judgment. If we don't hold judgment, we won't be judged, because everyone's kind of going to mirror back to what you think of something. They're going to mirror back to how you feel about something. So a lot of times we think that's someone else's judgment. And that's only true if we have no reaction to it. If we have any type of reaction to it, then it's ours. They're just showing us that it's ours. Kind of when you get into people who say, oh, I'm empathic. You're not empathic. We're technically never empathic. We can only feel what we hold. If we don't hold it, we can't feel it. People are going to activate that feeling within us, whether it's anger or love or hurt or whatever it is, sadness. And and a lot of people go through that phase where I can feel your sadness. They're feeling their own sadness. They just feel like it's someone else's, right? They feel like that's somebody else. That's not really my sadness. That's somebody else's sadness. We can only feel what we hold. And that also gives you a good idea of what's going on with other people. Like when you're in a reality, and people always say, and we talk a lot about telepathy, we talk about reading the field. Telepathy is a human word. We talk about reading the field. We talk about, ESP, or just really you're just reading your energy field about what's there, what's going on. Why is this ride not as smooth as I wanted it to be? Why is this going this way? Why is this going that way? What is going on here? We tend to kind of look at a lot of different things. And that's why it can be not so easy in the beginning for a lot of us, because we don't like the way it goes. We want it to go a certain way because we've been conditioned from our human experiences that all these things are supposed to happen this way, or all these things are supposed to happen this way. And that's not right. But why is it like this? It should be like this, not like that. And we just go back and forth on so much of this stuff because we don't like it. I don't like the way that happened. I want it to happen this way. I don't want it to happen that way. I don't like it like that. Because we are so conditioned to a human experience that we don't understand what a higher consciousness experience is. We have to learn to trust in the moment, that in the moment you'll have it. In that moment when you need it, you will have it. And that can take a lot to be able to trust that much when it looks like, you need a miracle. And sometimes we have to ask for that. Like, I just need a miracle. And I'll talk to my universe, which is just higher aspects of me, and go, yeah, I need a miracle on this, because I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do here. I'm not sure the next step. And sometimes we feel like kind of there is no step. And then we have to kind of wait, because sometimes that comes at the last minute. A lot of times it will come at the last minute, because that's when we'll hit the frequency of that being there, that opportunity, the money, the idea, whatever it is. And all of a sudden we'll be like, okay, now I know, now I see it. But we go through parts of the process where we can't see it till the last minute. We almost always know it'll be the last minute. We just might know we have to do certain things to get prepared, but we don't know yet where we're moving to. We just know, okay, well, you're not going to take anything with you. Get rid of everything. That's a process I'm going through now. Get rid of everything. You're not taking anything with you. Where you're going, you're not going to need any of this stuff. So just get rid of it all and just be ready to go on this day. Where am I going? Well, we don't know yet. That's not important yet. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about all that stuff. Just wrap up what you can wrap up here, and then you'll go forward after that. So it takes a lot of trust to be able to do a lot of this stuff. So if you're in that part of the journey and you feel like you're slipping and sliding through that, that's okay, because we will. I know sometimes I feel like I do that pretty well. Sometimes I feel like I kind of go back a little bit, and not so much go back, but go deeper in. There's more fear there. And yeah, maybe I did give in a little bit there, or maybe I did let that outside thing push me to do something it probably wasn't aligned for me to do, but I did it anyway because I just wanted a reprieve. You just want it to kind of ease up. You just want that to not be so rough. You just want that to not be so rough. And sometimes we can say just kind of ease up a little bit. Some people will just have really a lot of, normally I think it's both. Some people will experience a lot of physical pain when a lot of this stuff leaves the body. Some people will, everyone has their own part of physical pain. I mean, I think it's going to be dependent on how much density your body carries as to how rough that is in different parts of your process, or if you're doing the process with other people, and that can kind of pick up the slack in certain things you can't do if it's very physically intensive for you at some parts. And other times when you have to do the whole reality, you're not going to have that. You're not going to have someone else coming in to assist you with certain things, because you're supposed to be able to stand on. We can't do this journey with a lot of people around, even if we kind of want to be able to. We can't really do it that way. So there's always got to be that sovereignty we have to gain. And if you do live with people, or you have, a partner, usually you'll find your partner's just not around quite as much, or there'll be times when they're gone, or they're traveling, or you might even have separate homes for a while, because each person needs to do their own journey, and sometimes we can't do them together all the time. And if you have someone very much still ingrained in a human consciousness and someone ingrained in trying to anchor in higher consciousness, it can become very challenging. And these are sort of the relationships we have to sort of balance. What can we keep? What do we have to let go of? What can stay? What has to go, as we kind of go through things? What can be here? What can't be here? In a sense, it's not aligned anymore. And I kind of will go back to something I'll say, and if it's not here, it's not aligned. If it's supposed to be here, it would be aligned to be here. And if it's not aligned and it's not here, there's a reason for that. And you kind of have to trust in that there's a reason that person's not here, that job's not here, that money's not here, that place isn't here, whatever it is, it's just not aligned yet. It might be aligned tomorrow, or it might be aligned in 10 minutes, but it's not aligned now. So I think that's going to be it for me today. I just wanted to come on here and kind of test this out, because I haven't done this yet. So, okay. I think that went pretty well. I'm going to have to listen to that back and make sure I don't have any drags anywhere. But, okay. Next time I will schedule them ahead of time. Bye-bye.